Alright, folks. Alright, click the links for Odyssey, Bit Chute, support channel on Coffee, or the various other links. Be sure to join the Telegram. It's a good way to keep in touch, though it is a bit of a free speech zone, so you're going to encounter some spicy language. How to fix America. All this, waves hands, vaguely gesturing at something. If you put a gun to my head, figuratively, and said, fix this legally, how would I do it? Personally, I know you really got your work cut out for you if you had to fix things legally. But if I had to answer, I'd say, well, first of all, you'd have to start by removing Soros' money from the equation. The amount he donates to campaigns, this says, in case you're not following along, Joe Soros has bankrolled district attorneys in cities with the highest crime rates. No shit. Well, Jennifer Smith, that's awfully brave of you to make a post about this. It's weird that it didn't get more traction. Only 34 comments and 150 emoticons. Weird that you'd think this would be a bigger issue, but one person covered it. Good for you. Sentencing guideline. Thing is with running for office, he's like he'll put $600,000, $800,000 into a campaign where the other guy donates. He gets like $100,000. Like say the average to get funds is $100,000. He'll do just increase that by an order of magnitude. It's like, yeah, of course this person gets in office, and as it turns out, they're very, very bad people. It's like most normal people would look at that and go, yeah, this has got to stop. There's a constitutional argument for, yeah, well, you're gonna have to just find the solution, which is getting that kind of money out of politics, and then craft a legal argument that gets you to that solution, if you know what I mean with that. If both people who can pass through like a primary election process, and then after that point you can have like guaranteed minimums or maximums for fundraising, guaranteed equal time, especially with digital with the digital social media now, you might be able to guarantee something like that so you can keep a cap on money, so you really can get the best person for the office. And if you have to curtail donations, and the argument in the Supreme Court is it's a type of speech. It's like, well, you can't continue down this path. So you're going to have to get to the solution one way or another. The other thing is sentencing guidelines. People have to do time. You got cops, district attorneys, judges. They probably need less freedom. The most discretion might be at the police level, the cop level, because the man on the street kind of knows who they're dealing with, if they're seeing the same faces all the time. If they want to issue warnings, and that should be at their level, the cop level discretion, because they're keeping tabs on the community a little bit. They're knowing people, and if they see the usual suspects, then they know when it's time to go past a warning and say, okay, well, let me take this to the district attorney, charge it, and carry on from there. But when it hits the DA level, you've got a situation where they plead to things, but they're going to have to plead to things and still get time. It's like, okay, well, you're pleading to something where you would have got much more time, but we're not going to plea and release you on a GPS monitor. You're going to plea and you still have to get time. It's lessened time and be on probation type of thing, but you still have to get a punishment. Otherwise, this catch and release stuff is not working. And then, after that, after a couple of those soft warnings or hard warnings, because you are getting some time, you have to be, charged, prosecuted, and if convicted, you got to be sentenced to real time. If you repeat crime, you have to do real time. Otherwise, you're just going to keep repeating the crime, which is what you see in American cities today. And the time can't be a walk in the park. No TVs or tablets or drugs or tattoos. Nothing but books and classrooms. People have got to learn how to read. And like a lot of people can read, they need to learn how to read better. Or they can study anything they want, but they have to study. You can't force somebody to study. You can't force someone to read. But like when the only option is a class on Moby Dick, you're probably going to take that class and learn a little bit of literature. For people who want to learn. But the thing is, it's not, obviously, as an Eighth Amendment, you're not going to torture people. You're going to throw books at people. Read, damn it! But it should be boring. If you don't want to read or take classes, then there's nothing else to do other than read and get an education. If they feel, if they mess around in jail, then they should get isolated or deleted. Because really, you're coming up with hard lines of, there's a lot of people you just can't reach. If you got someone who's violent out of jail, and then they're violent in jail, well, I mean, what do you want to do with them? Oh, I need social workers. that only goes so far. Yeah, counselors, social workers are okay in the prison setting, but there's some people who are just kind of like rabid animals. So as a society, you're going to have to figure out what you want to do with those people. But as the situation is right now, people don't fear jail. A society that doesn't fear jail is a society that is doomed. It's not hyperbole, because look around at America today. Your options should be studying or literally an empty cell. Any gang activity or violence, and you're going to have to get deleted. No, social workers are not going to do it. Kids need fathers, and more important, or as important, they need extended families. Grandparents and great-grandparents. If you have kids young enough, you'll know your great-grandparents. Single moms can't raise kids. The past 60 years has really showed us, specifically with the black family, what happens with at least the Hart-Celler Act in 1965, and then the creation of the welfare state, when the taxpayer is now the father, and then the low-skilled worker is replaced his role as the breadwinner, and the taxpayer replaced his role as the husband. Well, what is he to do? Turns out he's to do nothing, so now you have single moms. If you pay for something, you will get more of something. Yes, people deserve second chances, but if you break into a car twice, you have to do real time for that. Yes, we can have a diversion for the first time you break into a car, an unoccupied car. Crime is against property kind of thing. Or else you will continue to do it. First time you break into a car, I don't know, you get a year at a work farm, something like that. I mean, even now, it's like it seems unheard of. Oh my God, that's so much time, a year at a work farm. Well, you were on high definition camera breaking into a car, like 1080 DP. This guy's camera, it's like that's you on camera breaking into a car with a sledgehammer or something. It's like, yeah, you gotta go away for that. You can't get a work release or a GPS release. Otherwise, what prevents you from breaking into cars 5 more times? And in Chicago, Detroit, Memphis, St. Louis, Oakland, LA, it's like nothing. It just keeps repeatedly happening over and over again. If you do it twice, you got to do 5 boring years. Get inside, take that 5 years, learn how to read, learn some mathematics, learn basic computer skills. They got to do time, and you can't just be releasing people on ankle monitors so they can commit the same crimes over and over again. You have to take the the discrimination away from the judges and district attorneys. When society learns that punishment doesn't follow crime, it dissolves. It kind of disassociates. People need structure because they don't have fathers and grandparents. People need the extended family. Look around at America over the past 60 years. Look at the POC family today. Tell me I am lying. Oh, you're so Instaphobic. We're going to kick you off YouTube. Yes, I'm sure you could do those things, but you can't call me a liar. America is headed to this nightmare, and I am kind of glad that I won't be here to see it. In 100 years, America will be South Africa meets Brazil. Mud cookies will be on the menu. That's something they make in Haiti. Seriously, yes, mud cookies. It's just what it sounds like. Though they do add some spices to spice up that mud. Something like an armed robbery doesn't get a diversion. Say something where you're caught on camera in high def. I mean, you're very clearly caught committing the crime. How much time as a society do you want to give somebody for robbing a store so you make sure that there's just an incentive for them to not continue to do these crimes? Oh, well, more diversions and more social workers. Yeah, either you're not in the community of the legal profession. You talk to people in the profession, from cops to lawyers to everyone on up to social workers. It's like you're going to get some real talk. And I'm not talking about the mouthpieces who are on camera, the camera horrors. I mean, real people who are in the profession. It's like, oh, yeah, what are the commonalities? Oh, well, they don't have fathers. Oh, so let's trace that fatherlessness back. Oh, well, 1965 Hart-Celler Act, and oh, yeah, it opens up a big can of worms. But I'm saying it's like, if you want to fix this, you have to open up every can of worms. No sacred cows. Even to the point where, like, I mean, some of these things can't. I'm trying to make this video for YouTube. Anyway, at least you're going to need like 10 years for some of these crimes. For people who do some kind of bad act, probably more. And it's 10 years without TV, no cell phones. Like 10 to 15 years spent reading and taking classes. A home invasion like George Floyd did, he did to some pregnant woman. that's got to be 40 years, maybe life. A society can't tolerate a home invasion. Crimes against the person, no, that's not a healthy society. I don't know how long he got, but it was like obviously he was out enough to buy a banana with a counterfeit 20 or something and OD on fentanyl when he wasn't starring in adult films. I mean, that's obviously a very sick society. And don't get me wrong, Chauvin seems like kind of a weirdo himself. The world is probably better off without both of those guys. But, you know, those guys were kind of made and crafted by these by the society that Soros is constantly blowing oxygen into this disintegration engine. Prison has to be a deterrent to people, and right now it's not really a deterrent to the worst offenders. If you commit a violent crime like a home invasion, people have to know that the punishment is so severe that it's just not worth it to break into somebody's house, steal some electronics, petty cash, whatever jewelry, you know, a few $1,000s. At least in my house, is like most houses, I don't think there's that much stuff. You're talking about like less than $5,000 of stuff that you can turn around. You got to look at that and go like, yeah, that's going to be 50 years in prison for a home invasion, and we're going to get maybe a few $1,000s. It's like it's not worth spending the rest of your life in prison. Guys like George Floyd don't fear getting 5 years for a home invasion. He'll just get in there, he'll smoke some weed, and he'll watch TV for 5 years. And your situation in America now, as it continues its peak Weimar, is the guards are bringing drugs into the prison because you have low trust people guarding low trust people. And there's no way around that unless the punishment for the guards is so severe. And then it's like, well, who's going to guard the guards? It's like, oh, that's why a lot of this is deck chairs on the Titanic. You have to have high trust people in positions that matter, and getting America to accept that. Or at least you have to have the discussion of it. And you're not going to have the discussion on a mainstream platform. So it means 90% of the population's not, they're not on Telegram, Gab, Odyssey, Bit Chute, that kind of stuff. They're on the mainstream. So they're just not having these discussions. That's why I said, if you could do all this stuff, how would you fix things? Oh, well, you got to sit on school boards, you got to run for city councils. I'm talking to you, whoever's listening to this. If you're over 18, you can run for office, sit on city councils. You got to take an active part in your civilization and running things. It's like, it's an uphill battle for the bread and circuses crowd. The people who are seeking positions of power and keynotes and pivot points are usually the people that you don't want to have positions of power. And that goes for people who go out to be police also. Anyway, if you're committing these violent crimes, you have to know that punishment is just not worth it. Imagine a prison with no TVs, drugs, computers, just a silent punishment where you can read books or you can take classes. These guys hate books. Books are kryptonite to them. They would come out of a 5-year bid, speaking of the horrors of having to learn how to read. They would not want to return just because, it's just not fun. It's just an empty cell with a book in it. Maybe there's a lunchtime you get to play some basketball, but it's like, you would not want to go back to that prison. Right now, they don't fear prison, and they keep committing crimes. We have a catch and release system by design. People vote for soft on crime stuff because they're not paying attention. That's how we get to where we are, by not paying attention to these puppet masters and lizard people. Then you have crime, like in San Francisco, at just insane levels. And I love when they interview San Francisco liberals and they're talking around this. They don't want to say anything publicly, not on camera, because they'll get fired. They'll get doxxed by the reporters. They'll get, their whole life will be turned upside down because they were a victim of a crime, and they started to say like, yeah, I can't help but notice some commonalities. So when they're interviewed, they're at this loss for words. Like they interview these Asian guys who have their house broken into, or these white guys, and it's like, you can see the wheels turning in their brain, and they're trying to, even some Latin women were getting interviewed, and they're just not going to come out and say it. And until you come out and start saying it, nothing changes. Anyway, so you'd need a motivated, awake voter base, people who are just tired of these Soros types, fund raising, manipulation. Because essentially you have a de jure government that you vote for allegedly, but then you have a de facto government who's appointing the real puppets into positions of power, the district attorneys and stuff. So, you've got, you can have the public airwaves, you've got TV and social media can have local channels with equal talk time for different campaigns. That way you could take the money out of the campaigns and they would have the ability to disseminate information. Social media platforms would need to be guaranteed free speech zones so everyone could fairly express their views without getting kicked off, doxxed, fired, that kind of stuff. The only kind of speech that matters right now is going to be anonymous speech. Because, in wine is truth. Well, in anonymity is truth. Otherwise, you can use social pressure. And I mean, and these puppet masters, they want to kill anonymous internet because they know that once they kill that, it's like you're just going to get the party line. Anyway, they just make you're gonna have to give people equal time, kind of stuff. Anyway, so for crimes, you're gonna have to give people time instead of like catch and release. It's gonna have to be time measured in decades, not in a GPS ankle monitor. People need to know if they carjack someone, they're gonna get like 40 years. No, you're not going to reform a lot of people, but you can physically prevent them from hurting other people by putting them in jail for 40 years. It's at the basic level of, instead of trying to change their brain, you're changing their geography where they physically cannot hurt someone else because they're locked in a structure. Hopefully people learn that jail needs to be something they want to avoid, so they're going to have to live on the straight and narrow. The other thing that is incentivizing the family, start cutting back welfare. Make maybe work farms for unwed whores. They can stay isolated on a work farm, isolated from men, so they're not going to have more kids. Welfare is taxpayer money. It should be a form of punishment. You get put on a farm, so you've got your bastard, but you have one bastard, but you just don't continue to have a string of bastards. Bastards from whores are almost always going to be future felons, and then future whores who give birth to future felons. It's just a cycle of bastard whore syndrome. Single mothers are the fastest way to destroy a society, which is what happened to America. You got a lot of these low-skill dudes and people who need simpler jobs. But first, you need to close the borders because you're importing new low-skill workers that the taxpayer has to pay for. Eventually, the money will run out. Faster now because inflation's at 8%. Let's print more money. What happens if you print more money? Well, if you have more of something, it usually becomes less valuable. So most of these low-skill people need to be like on farms or factories. Even if it's literally busy work, they can make like high-dollar clothing, handmade high-dollar clothing if they want, or organic farms, or I don't know, some of the stuff you make in China. It's like you could make that in America, which would mean that you would need to prohibit some Chinese trade goods so that these low-skill people could make it and it would be profitable, or at least close to profitable. It doesn't matter if it's literally subsidized busy work. It keeps them busy so that they're not committing crimes. So yes, essentially you might need government towns where they're kind of kept apart under some discipline, because they have, already shown that they need structure and discipline. A lot of people do. People have to know that if they get pregnant and can't take care of it, they're going to have to go live on a government farm, which doesn't have access to the opposite sex. So you can't just keep making a string of kids. You can get one welfare baby, and that is it. Eventually, the problem will take care of itself via Darwinism. Anyway, is this too base for YouTube? Did I say too many hot words? Did I say any hot words? I don't know. We'll find out. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys all next episode.